During my sister's wedding, I'll never forget, someone came up to the mic and shared some advice that blew me away. He said, whenever you're experiencing great challenges or great failures, try to change your attitude and instead look to it as an opportunity. What he said just stunned me. Maybe it was the alcohol. I did throw up during my sister's wedding, and my family still very embarrassingly brings that up from time to time. But the fact is, here I am many years later, still thinking about that quote. These days, whenever I do something dumb, which is quite often, I always think about the quote from the wedding. How can I turn this failure into an opportunity? And I've done so many dumb things over the years that it's all just muscle memory for me now. In fact, some of my greatest achievements were a direct result of this attitude towards turning failure into opportunity. And I believe you too will find a lot more success if you change your attitudes towards failure. And who knows, maybe your biggest failures might turn into your greatest achievements. And I believe this works on just about any failure. And to prove it, I'm going to share with you my two greatest career failures and how I turned them around. My first big failure goes back all the way to my first job out of college. I still think about it often and it still hurts every time. So here I was, a new hire at this small company of about 50 people. And my job was to be an analyst, which basically means I copied and pasted information from one document to another all day long. It was a horrible job with no career prospects, but I took it because I needed a job, and I hoped that since it was a small company, I'd eventually be able to transfer into something more interesting. On my second week of the job, there was an offsite for all the employees and their family members. And we'd all go to the park by the lake, eat, and have a good time together. Supposedly. The CEO and the VP were really big into volleyball, so they set up this volleyball court right next to the eating area so people could choose to either play volleyball or hang out by the food. I chose to play volleyball. And, I was decently athletic back then, and I wanted to look good in front of the execs. And so here I am up to serve. And what you need to know about me is I grew up playing tennis. So I could easily hit a tennis serve at 100 miles per hour. And that motion translates really well into volleyball. And so here I am up to serve, getting ready to hit a real screamer. And so with the whole company watching, I just rifle that serve. And the contact is good and that thing is flying. But something goes terribly wrong, and the ball just doesn't come down. It just keeps going, this laser beam, and it flies out of bounds. And there's this stroller. Our VP's 1-year-old son is just innocently sitting in this stroller, and the ball is headed straight for it. And that nuke just hits that poor boy directly in the face. And the stroller basically explodes, and I'm just standing there thinking that in a span of a couple seconds, I just ruined my entire career at this company. And then, aside from all the screaming, the venue has gone completely silent. It's a nightmare scenario that I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy. Within 2 minutes, the entire venue is cleared and everyone has gone home. During this time, no one comes within 10 feet of me, or much less even looks me in the eye. It's the loneliest I've ever felt in my life. Side note, one guy did actually talk to me though. He was actually smiling. And we end up becoming great friends. I tell this story at his wedding, and he eventually helps me find a job at Google. I hope to bring him on the channel one day because he's a real funny guy. Back to the story. So the offsite was on a Friday, and I go home alone, and all weekend I'm asking myself how I could possibly be this dumb. Like, why didn't I just serve the ball underhand, like any normal person would do, knowing that there's a baby nearby? I mean, as a parent now, if someone did that to my kid, I would strangle them, even if they did it by accident. So I'm beating myself up the entire weekend until I finally ask myself, how can I turn this failure into an opportunity? To be honest, actually, I was just looking for damage control, but it did end up being the biggest opportunity of my life. I decided I'd do a few things. First, I'd apologize, and I mean a real apology. Something along the lines of, I'm an idiot and I'm sorry. Second, I wanted to make sure the kid was okay, which he was. By the way, that kid is going to grow up to be a tough son of a gun because I really crushed that serve. Finally, I decided I'd spoil the kid, and so I bought him this really cute yet ferocious looking stuffed animal alligator. When I come back into work, the dust hasn't fully settled, but I make my amends with the VP and I'm not fired. Surprisingly, he was actually quite a good sport about it. He said his kid turned out okay and he should have never had his kid there in the first place. It's something I never really considered, but it shows the quality of the person standing across from me. And so over time, I keep checking up on the VP and his kid. Not because I'm looking for anything, but because I'm a decent human being. And over time, we end up building a good working relationship, and the whole volleyball thing is in the past. Fast forward about a year. I've been working hard learning to code, doing whatever I can to hopefully become an engineer one day. And guess who happens to be the VP of engineering? That's right, it's my man. And because we had built this good working relationship, he brings me onto the team as an engineer. They paid for my coding classes, they helped me learn on the job, and that was the foundation I'd eventually use to become an engineer at Google one day. And had I not smashed that volleyball into the VP's son's face, I don't think I'd be an engineer today. Fast forward a few years. When I win my first big career award, I make a special shout out to that VP because without him, it would have never happened. And to this day, we still keep in touch, and his son is growing into a fine little guy. By the way, I've never quite served a volleyball the same way since. Story number 2. This one hurts even more because it's relatively recent, and the mental scars from this one are so deeply ingrained that I think it's still affecting my career. About 2 years into my job at Google, I get promoted to become the manager of an engineering team. And it was something I was really proud of because it was like my life's career plan was actually coming together. I was only 27 years old, and getting this position this early made me start to think I was actually a talented guy. The plan was to build up these management skills quickly, continue climbing up the ladder, and who knows, in 10 years I could actually be someone really important. It felt really good telling everyone I was a manager at Google. My parents were super proud of me, and they were telling all their friends too. And I've always been in the shadow of my older sister, who is a much more people-oriented person than me. And so for me to become a people manager before she did felt like quite an accomplishment. But when I actually started doing the job, I really wasn't enjoying it. And even though I had read like 10 books on management, I still felt so out of place. And I worked so hard too. I worked long nights and weekends in hopes that I'd eventually get better at it and start hitting a stride. But I just remember every day waking up, looking myself in the mirror, and asking myself how the heck I was going to get through the day. I won't get too much into the details of this because I still work for Google and I don't want to get fired, but I quit after only about 3 months of this. And it was the most painful career moment for me of my life. Having to tell everyone, my team, my colleagues, my network, my family, that I was quitting this position that I was so happy to brag about just 3 months ago. Anyway, this is without a doubt my greatest career failure, and it's not something I enjoy sharing because those wounds haven't fully healed yet. But the point of this video is to never let a good failure go to waste. And that's exactly what I did after I quit. What possible opportunities could be found in a failure like this? Well, for me, I decided to double down on my strengths. Instead of going down the very prestigious management path, I decided to do what I loved and just be an individual contributor on a team. I still had leadership qualities, like I loved helping and inspiring people, but I didn't like the typical people management responsibilities. So I became a team lead, a technical lead, and in the Salesforce world, this is known as a technical architect. And instead of spending all my personal time working late and on weekends trying to become a better manager, I instead decided to use my free time to teach people how to code. And so I still got the high of helping people with their careers without having all the baggage of actual people management. And so I came out with a bunch of Salesforce coding courses, and they've changed my life in pretty much every single way. My wife was able to quit her job and focus on raising the kids that we now have. I've gotten a lot of personal satisfaction from helping people transition their careers. And recording all those courses ended up being the start of this YouTube channel. And none of this would have happened had I stayed on as a manager. The best part is I really don't have to deal with people anymore. And I always say I'm not really a people person, and it's true. The reason why I gravitate towards things like blogging and YouTube is because if someone has a problem with me or something I say, then they can just get the hell out of here. But in real life, it doesn't really work like that. Or maybe that's just what I tell myself to feel better about being a failed manager. But even if that's true, I gotta say, my life and career are in a pretty good place right now, and if things just continued the way they were, I think I'd die a pretty happy man. And I gotta thank my failure in people management for that. So the lesson of the day is to never let a good failure go to waste. Find the opportunity and take it. And if you find yourself telling yourself that an opportunity just can't possibly exist, then I tell you that you're not looking hard enough. The pain of failure is clouding your judgment. But keep your head high, because once that initial pain goes away, it's time to switch gears, go on attack mode, and find that next great opportunity. It's always there, especially in failure. And who knows, maybe your failure will be the best thing that's ever happened to you. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want more, and I'll see you next time.